Welcome to segment 324. In the next 4 segments, you'll read and receive instruction relating to claims and claims interpretation, what actually goes into the construction of claims, things of that nature. I want to set a little bit of the stage here. And for this, I think it's helpful to take a step back and ask the question, how do we even claim? So in the textbook itself, I have material that talks about the structure of the claim, about how you have a preamble section, a patent class and preamble, and then you have specific body, or what I call claim body. These are just specific limitations of the claim. I think one of the most frequent errors that I see with claims is forgetting the fact that the claim is in fact one complete sentence. So yes, there is kind of I would say a structure as far as how it is that it's being broken down. But at the outset, remember, this is just one entire complete sentence. So I expect that there still be punctuation. I expect that there still be a period at the end. In fact, even the other day ago, I got a call from the patent examiner. And this was for a case that was recently allowed. And he said, yes, this actually went to the publications department to finalize the patent application prior to issuance. And he says, however, there was a red flag that issued. And I said, really, what was that? And he said, Claim 2 doesn't have a period at the end, and I need your approval to add it. So it is a very real thing. If you don't add a period, you will get a flag before it actually goes to publication as an issued patent. It needs to be a complete sentence. So with that in mind, I want you to be aware of that. Now, I talk about the different types of claims. I talk about how it is that they're broken down, a comparison of the different types of classes. But I want to take a different approach here. And that is, where do you actually start when you are actually trying to come up with a claim yourself? You have somebody before you, an inventor, and they're sitting down and they're presenting you with their invention. My goal when I sit down for invention disclosures is to present a claim to them before I leave. Because the claim helps to synthesize what I view as the invention. And it's a great way to actually take what it is that they are indicating and to synthesize it into just a few very succinct sentences. How do we do this? So when you're talking to the inventor, it is good and helpful for the inventor to break down their invention into specific components. And so you may say, some of the questions you can ask are, can you please break down your invention to parts as to how it is that it's actually operating? So it may be a method type process where A goes to B and B goes to C. And it's a matter of synthesizing that 3-part type process into 3 distinct limitations. On the other hand, we've had others that are very mechanical. And if it's a mechanical, you may say, I need to understand the structure as to how everything actually fits together. I need to understand how the knob goes on the door. I need to understand how it is that the hinge goes on the door. So from that point of view, it's a breaking down of the, let's say, mechanical structure of what actually is going into the invention itself. To a certain extent, it doesn't matter whether you're dealing with software or mechanical or even biochemical, for that matter. The approach should be exactly the same. And that is, whatever is being presented to you from the inventor to you as the representative, you need to take whatever they're doing and to break it down into the most skeleton components of what is necessary. Now, the inventors have a hard time with doing this because they like to slosh a lot of gravy. A lot of everything that relates to the invention is going into this bucket. And what you are being hired to do is to pick out the exact fragments of what is essential for the recipe. Now think of this in terms of a recipe. If we're going to bake some cookies, we know we need some flour, we need some butter, some milk, potentially lots of chocolate chips. And the recipe essentially says we have these ingredients, and then we have the actual instructions that say, mix together the dry ingredients first, mix together the wet ingredients, put the wet into the dry, mix it for a set amount of time, and then bake it. If we go through this same approach, I think it is exactly how it is that claiming works. We first come up with our ingredients. And when you get your ingredient list, You're asking the question, is this ingredient actually fundamental to the operation of the invention, or is it just like chocolate chips? Can it be switched out? Can we actually put something else in its place? If it's something that is kind of, if it is something that is added in, that is not fundamental to the foundation of the invention, then you classify that as not essential. In other words, it's perfect for a dependent claim, not for an independent claim. The independent claim is where we are trying to get the core nuggets of what actually is the fundamental aspects and items that are required in order for the invention to operate. So you get your list of ingredients and you're asking the question, is this essential or not? And that's what you can do with the inventor. You've indicated to me 10 things here that kind of relate to your invention. Let's go through and based off of our discussion, I see that elements 1, 2, and 5 are really kind of the core parts of your invention, and everything else are essentially added on or alternatives to this core type fabric and framework that we have. And it's a great place, once you have the ingredients on paper, for the inventor to say, well, actually you're missing because element 7 here is actually part of the foundation. It's in every single implementation, etc., etc. Once you have the key ingredients, then the claim is just the linking of them together. So you have element 1 that is linked to element 2 that is linked to element 3. So let's say that we're dealing with camera type technology. And we say, okay, the invention here relates to some type of processing of an image on an image sensor. So you have the image coming in through the lens, it's being hit by some type of a sensor, and then it goes to some type of processing unit to then interpret what it is that is being processed by, or what is being received by the image sensor. And so if we're breaking down our ingredients, when we say, okay, well, we need a lens. Lens comes in, light hits some type of a sensor, so we have some type of a camera sensor there. And then there's some interpretation of what's hitting the sensor, so we have some type of image processor. So you might have the raw ingredients right there, and you may say, okay, so we have a claim where we say a camera module comprising of a lens, a camera sensor, and an image processing system. And then you can then say, wherein the image processing system comprises of, let's say a processor to receive the light through the lens, a processor configured to interpret the signal that is received at the camera sensor, and we have a processor designed to feed that information back to the processing unit to interpret the light that was received. All that we're doing is we're linking our ingredients together. So it doesn't matter necessarily how it is that we're doing it. If we're talking something more mechanical, let's say that we have a bicycle, and we list out all the ingredients on a bicycle, where we have the wheels, we have the frame, we have the handlebars, we have the derailleurs, and you have all the ingredients there, and then you talk to the person and they say, well, you know what? The most fundamental, we don't even need 2 wheels. We just need 1 wheel. And if we just have 1 wheel, we don't even need a gear assembly to go from a rear derailleur to a front derailleur. So we can just have a simple gear assembly or gear system just on the 1 wheel. So there's a variety of ways that you can do this. And so when you're doing your claim, you might have the most essential ingredient list, and you say, we have a bicycle comprising of at least 1 wheel and a gear assembly system mounted to the at least 1 wheel, and we have a seat affixed to the at least 1 wheel, and that might be about it. So it all comes down to one, identifying the elements, the ingredients that go into the invention, identifying whether they are essential or not essential, and then last but not least, taking a step back and simply fitting them together, showing how the first element fits in with the second elements, how the second element potentially fits into the third element. Now, I would indicate, taking one step back, that when you go through this process, it's often a little bit, hard to do a claim immediately upfront with an inventor. I recognize that. It took me many years and some time before I felt comfortable on the fly coming up with a claim that could be presented to the inventor in real time to, in fact, be dissected. Some practitioners prefer not to do that, but rather to go back, listen to the invention disclosure again, and then they kind of distill down the claim and then they send it back to the inventor. So all this kind of revolves around your preference. My goal is that you get comfortable with actually at least identifying the ingredients and identifying how they are connected and identifying which of those ingredients is really essential. Because that, in essence, will become your claim. The other caveat that I would indicate is that the ability to draft a claim in real time stems upon understanding very clearly what the background is for the invention. And what I mean by that is, let's assume that we go back to our bicycle and we've invented a bicycle that has at least one wheel, one gear assembly, and a seat. Well, if we talk to the inventor, and let's say the inventor says, you know, I was riding my bicycle the other day and I really had an issue with being able to shift in a fluid manner from the first gear to the second gear. So my system is all about, it's a new gear assembly system to shift between gears on a bicycle. Well, if we have that context in place, the background is a little bit already known, namely a bicycle with two wheels, and there's a gear assembly system that allows to switch from one gear to another gear. So when we're doing our claim, that kind of sets the context here. We're not just trying to go for a wheel with a seat and the gear assembly system. We're going for, in particular, a gear assembly system for a bicycle. And that gear assembly system may include exactly the components. So we would actually drill in particular, on what the ingredients are for the gear assembly system, not necessarily the ingredients for the bike as a whole. So understanding a little bit of the background as to what really is the motivation, what is already known out there, sets the context to knowing where it is that you need to start with your claim as far as the ingredient list. So if you simply start with, talking about everything about bicycles, you will have a very long ingredient list. So you need to be able to restrict immediately down your ingredient list to the components that really are the focus of the invention. And so one of the questions that you can ask the inventor is, all right, according to you, based off of everything you know about the prior art, and in fact, they may not even know that term, so based on everything that you are aware of with respect to everything there is out there, how is your invention fundamentally different? Now, it's a great question for an inventor because it gets them thinking. They say, you know what? It really comes down to this little nugget right here. So if the inventor is often the best person to restrict down immediately where they see the basis of the distinguishing feature between what they have and everything else there is out there. So get the inventor on your side. Get the inventor to be able to get to that point so that you know where to start your essential list or your ingredient list, from which you can then identify the essential ingredients, from which you can then sit down and actually start composing the claim. So that's a little bit of the flow that I go through. With that in combination of what you will read in the textbook, that will allow you to have some type of flow of one, knowing the structure from the textbook as to what goes where, and also just the overall process of how do you approach claim drafting, both just globally and also when you're sitting down with the inventor, him or herself as well.